Alright, so what you see here is going to be my secondary deck. Underneath here I just kind of got everything tacked in. I'm waiting for some tie downs for the fuel tank as well as some latches. But this is where my fuel tank is underneath there, as well as the 3 trolling motor batteries. So I've got that. I'm kind of at a standstill with that for a time. I've got this piece cut in for the back of the transom area here. I am waiting on hinges and a few other things, and bilge pumps and wash down pumps. I'm waiting for a few of those things to come in. It's just easier to plumb them in now before I have it all closed off. So that's done as far as I can go. I've got a box cut there. That's like an 8x8 box that I cut. And what that's going to be used for is to basically bilge out this area of the boat. Because as you know, I've been talking the whole time, I've been welding everything 100% down here in the lower part of the boat, as well as I'm going to up front. But what that's going to do is that doesn't allow any water to get down to the bottom of the boat where your traditional bilge would be. And I've done that on purpose because I want to keep that as dry as possible, just for mold issues. Every boat I've ever had, I've always had problems with mold because that boat down there stays wet. So one of my big things was, whenever I build this boat, I wanted to be able to keep it as dry as possible. So I'm going to mount a bilge pump down to the bottom of that box. There's going to be a drain plug that sits right there. So if I do get caught out in the rain, I can basically open that drain plug up there. The water that's in this area of the boat will drain into that box, and I can bilge it out the back. So that's done. That's at a standstill basically till I get parts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on the giant live well that I'm going to put right here. And if you guys have noticed, I haven't done a lot of bracing and support in the front of this boat, and I've been holding off on that because I wasn't sure how I was going to do about my storage boxes and my live wells. There's going to be 2 live wells up here as well as 2 storage boxes. So, you know, a lot going in. I wanted to see how everything was going to fall in before I went ahead and put my final support in up here in the front of the boat. So I just took some numbers, and I'm going to build a big live well here. The front live well, it's going to be 60 inches long, 18 inches tall, and 18 inches wide. So that gives me a full to the top capacity of about 83 gallons. Now naturally you're not going to have a live well that's going to be filled to the top. You're going to have your overflow probably about 4 inches down. So that gives me a live well capacity up front of about 64 gallons, which is way more than what I'll ever need. But if you're doing it, you might as well do it right and do it big. So, you know, if ever I'm up north and I catch a muskie and I want to revive him, you know, I've got the length of the live well to throw that in. Do a lot of catfishing, get a big blue or a flathead or something in there. I want to throw them in there for a time, get some pictures, whatever. I've got the capacity, as well as if I'm not using this live well, because I'm going to put a manifold on all the pumps, I can use it for storage. It's a giant storage area. If I'm going on trips, and this thing's basically going to be watertight the way I'm going to build the lid, so it'd be a good storage. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. This live well is going to start right here. It's going to come out 18 inches and then go 5 foot the width of the boat. The door is going to open this way, so where I can access it from right here. This will give me a nice little kneeling platform to get a big fish in and out of that live well. So anyway, I'm going to get started on that. I'm just laying out here on a sheet, kind of make the most of my sheets here. I'm kind of getting down to the end of this project and using up, you know, most of my materials. So I've still got to deck out this whole front deck, as well as put the front part on the very front of the boat for the trolling motor area, as well as I still have to finish off those pieces there and build out the console. So I've actually got quite a bit of material that I still need to have and use. So anyway, going to try to make the most of it. Hopefully I don't have to buy any more sheet. So I'm just getting everything laid out here. Building a box without a top, essentially, is all I'm doing with the live well. It's got to be watertight, so the weld's got to be good. that's the project I'm working on now. You can see I've got, that's the bottom, and then the two sides here. I'll cut it all out, then pull new numbers to get the other sides, and I'll have to get one more sheet to cut the second long side. So anyway, I'll throw you up on a time lapse and kind of let you guys see here what I've got going. I'm just going to build the box now, and then we'll cut in all the holes for the overflows and the intakes and everything at a later date. But right now I'm just trying to stay busy here on this boat project till I get some more stuff coming in and build these live wells. So I'm working on the front deck of the boat here, and basically I'm sure some of you have thought, well, he did all the bracing to the bottom and then he just left it. And you know, I did that intentionally as far as the bracing on the bottom of the boat. You can see here I've got a little bit of a mess, but basically what I wanted to do was I want to fill up this deck space with as much you know, usable storage as I can. I don't want to have a bunch of open areas without having latches and doors and, you know, being able to store stuff basically. So I want to make use of all the usable space that I have. And whenever I initially you know, built this boat, I wasn't sure how it was going to lay out. So rather than going through and bracing everything up initially and then at a later time, like right now, finding out I screwed myself, I opted just to put these temporary bracing in until I came to it. So what I've got here is, this is the big live well here. This is the, it's gonna be, this is about 66 gallons of usable water in this thing. If I fill it to the top, it's like 84 gallons, so it's a big live well. This is gonna sit right here. You can see I've got that cross support welded there in the, on the front deck. Then I'm gonna skip about 14 inches. This is the first cross support for the front live well that's going to sit. This is going to be a smaller, like a 12-gallon live well. And then moving on. But you can see I've built the live well so where I can store coolers, my small generator. I built it 18 inches tall for that reason. Now, if I would have braced everything in normal, I would have had problems, because you can, right now that live well hits that. So basically that's my reasoning for not bracing everything from the get-go. I'm just kind of waiting. So now what I've got is, now I've got all my live wells and everything built. Now I can get measurements off of them. You can see those two pipes right there. That's how I'm going to put my plumbing and also my wiring, one in each, to bring to the front of the boat. So I've got to be able to access that. Also, that's how I'm going to access the underneath in case I need to ever get to anything, is through the storage compartments that I'm going to put in the front deck. So basically what I need to do now is I need to cut out that temporary bracing. Now that I know how deep my live well is going to set in, I need to weld in some permanent diagonal bracing going up the rake of the boat, as well as you know, this live well here is going to weigh somewhere around 600 pounds. A little over 600 pounds, actually about 64 pounds, I think, whenever it's full. So that's a lot of weight. So what I need to do is I need to build a complete framework underneath this live well, rather than just hanging it from the deck. So that's what I've got going on now. I'm just getting everything kind of squared away, gonna get this all cleaned up, vacuumed out, and then I can go through, now that I know how deep my live well is, and I can start welding in cross supports and diagonal bracing to brace the bottom of the boat. And then on top of that, you can see right there, right, so got all my front bracing in. Like I said, I'm trying to do this as overkill as possible. So what I did was I took 2-inch square tubing there, and because the boat is naturally curved going up, there's big gaps underneath it. So then I took rips of 3/16, and I used that to fill the gaps, and I welded those to the square tubing, and so everything kind of ties in. I welded front and back, so it's got a lot of rigidity there. This here is going to be the point of the boat actually where it's going to have the most pressure as far as breaking the waves. This general area, most people think the very front of the boat is what breaks the waves, and it's right where that boat makes contact with the water is what gets the most pressure. As well as if I'm flying down the river and I hit a log or something else, right in that area there is what's going to take the pressure. So the first 3 are on 6-inch centers, and then I brought it up to 8-inch centers coming up there. So it should be very, very stout. Not only have I reinforced the hell out of it, but you have to remember this is 3/16 plate material. It's a 5086 grade, which is substantially harder than the 5052 grade that normal boats are made. 95% of your aluminum boats are made out of it. This bottom is 5086 and the sides are 5052, and you can scratch the sides with a nail or a sharp object, and you can just barely scratch the bottom. Not as flexible, the bottom isn't. A little bit more prone to stress fractures, but it's substantially harder. So that's why I went with what I did. But anyway, I think it'll do just fine how I've reinforced this here. The only other thing I may do is after I get laid out for all my boxes and everything, if I have the room, I may put a couple cross supports that tie in the runners there. So like I said, the reason that I held off from doing this was to make sure that I had the depth that I need for all my boxes. So anyway, after I get everything kind of laid out, one final thing I'm going to do is, you can see I've got my flotation, my pickboard insulation. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to fill in the ridges right there on every single one, and then take some strapping and weld across the top of the 2-inch to keep it held down in place. And hopefully this will keep a lot of the water noise down. A lot of times the big problem with an aluminum boat, especially with spider rigging, is if you're trolling into a chop, you get a lot of sound and kind of echo vibration through the aluminum hull. And hopefully by basically insulating the hull up front here, I will remedy some of that problem. So anyway, I've talked about this before. This insulation. This is 2-inch closed cell rigid foam board insulation. There's nothing cheap about this. This is used very commonly in boat building. Plate boats. I know of several manufacturers that use this stuff. I'm not sure what a 4x8 sheet of this stuff will float. I know it's an incredible amount, and I'm going to have about 8 sheets of it throughout this boat. So sound deadening, flotation, that stuff won't absorb water, and it won't break down neither. So anyway, that's what I got going here. Like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna build a frame out for that big live well. That big live well there, once full, is gonna weigh a little over 500 pounds. So it's almost like setting a motor, that big outboard back there. It's almost like setting that right here. So I need a very secure mounting platform for that, as well as it's far enough forward that it's going to take a little bit of a beating. The further forward you put something in a boat, the rougher riding it is. So I'm going to build a nice sturdy platform for it, tie everything straight down, as well as basically encase this thing in 2-inch square tubing. So I'm going to start from the back. I'm going to work my way forward, and then start laying out for my my front deck, and then I've got my smaller live well that's going to sit right here. This is more than likely going to be the primary live well I'm going to use. This one here is just mainly for storage, and because I'm building a boat, I can put one in. As well as I'm going to have several storage compartments as space allows. So anyway, like I said, I'm trying to film as much as I can, but as you can see, the space is quite cramped. It's very difficult to film, basically because I get in the way too much. But I'll try to film as much as I can, and I will get back with you whenever something else gets done.